Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Tell Me Everything. I'm your host, Danielle Spinelli. I have Blake on with us today. He's with NoDwell. Very awesome concept that he's got going on as far as yard management and getting carriers to be moved, helping brokers out, of course, helping shippers out on their really just their ROI on everything. It's pretty cool what all he's doing. So really fun episode, kind of get to learn about how he has went from the bottom, started from the bottom. Now he's here. But kind of showing how that journey is and how it's so important to believe in yourself and keep pushing on and have that vision. I think that's huge. It talks a lot about networking, which is a big thing. He'll be at Broker Carrier Summit. So be sure if you have not already registered for Broker Carrier Summit to do that. And let's jump in it.
Tell me everything.
Tell me everything.
Thanks so much for coming on, though. Where are you at? Are you at a conference?
Yeah, we're at the Midwest Manufacturers Expo down in Branson, Missouri today.
Okay, good old Branson, Missouri.
You better believe it.
That's funny. I feel like there's a decent amount of conferences there. Like bulk loads, wasn't that one there too?
I don't know if it probably. I mean, it's like the what's the Tennessee Gatlinburg of the West, basically out here. So
Gotcha,
it's a little mini Gatlinburg. So it's got plenty of stuff to do, plenty of scenic stuff. So I guess this is a hot spot.
Yeah, that's fun. Well, real fast while we kick everything off, if you'll just kind of introduce yourself, tell a little bit about, what you're doing now, and then we'll kind of get into the whole tell me everything piece in a second.
My name is Blake Lappan. I've been in the industry, supply chain industry, mainly truckload trucking for 22 years. Spent 6.5 of them as a driver, and then kind of learning what the industry does and how it does it and seeing all kinds of ways to improve it, basically. Then I started hiring drivers, started a yard management side, got off the road, started yard management work, did it myself at first, and then kind of grew that. And that's been our primary business for a long time. But when you do yard management, a lot of times they need trucking as well. So we got into some trucking, which is not our favorite part of the thing because it's very difficult. I high praise for all the big truck companies out there for doing what they do. It's a lot. So we do primarily stick with yard management, and short haul trucking is what we've gotten into, is the 200-mile loads that OTR carriers don't want, but we do, because then we intend to get another 200-mile load back to send our driver to their family every night on our trucking end of things. I've been 0 to 4 million in bankrupt, and then rebuilt from that to time and a half that now, all bootstrapped. So been through a lot. School Hard Knocks has been my number one teacher, not by choice, but mainly by ignorance throughout this whole process. Just not realizing, what connecting with people, what networking, what mentorship, what all of those things really mean. That's been my biggest growth is mindset and mentorship, understanding that value, and then understanding how money works. All these things I've kind of learned, the enterprise thinking versus the, lifestyle business or just super small founder-led business presents. None of these things I knew, right? I just didn't have very much early education other than watching other lifestyle businesses, entrepreneurs do their business and thinking that was massive. They have 20 employees. What do you mean? So learned a ton over these years, slower than I would have liked. When I look back, I'm like, what in the world? Why'd that take so long? But again, it's ignorance. It's just, you got to learn. And if you don't go out and seek it, then you're not going to find it. So finally started doing that about 8 years ago, and that changed everything for me. So now we've kind of spun out, and our yard management has kind of taught us that there's a lot of underserved or unserved shippers out there in the yard management space due to many constraints that we can get into later if we want to, but there's a lot of different constraints why they don't do it. So we are building this software platform called NoDwell to basically democratize and or fractionalize a spotter tractor in an industrial park to all the shippers that don't have enough volume, whatever their constraint, that have one of those constraints, right, that are stopping them from doing the drop trailer program. Because we all know that it's the best way to do truckload. We've known that for decades now. And so we're trying to basically just bring that to as many shippers who will let us, to just unlock all of this static idle time that trucks have, under dispatch, chasing appointment times, right? And live transfer of good processes. So that's our vision now. We're really focused on getting that software perfected, getting it into, we're getting ready to put it into 3 or 4 clients over February, March, April, the MVP to kind of get that thing going, and then scale it as fast as we can to just get this solution to the market. So that's where I live today.
That's exciting. A big journey. And it's interesting because you were talking a lot about like learning from mistakes and stuff like that. I think that's majority of logistics leaders, especially those who have bootstrapped it. And, when they usually you have some sort of dip, and it's how you handle that dip and how you come back is kind of what makes you that type of leader and things like that. So it's cool that you went through that and then now recognize like the mentorship's important, networking is so important. I guess as far as networking and things like that, what's the best place you found to kind of network and find those people that can become your mentors?
Oh, what a great question. Because I'm coming in not knowing anything, I've been trying all the things, right? Number one is go where they are. I heard that from an influencers or wherever I'm getting my education. Go where they are. So that's the first one. But LinkedIn has been remarkable as far as people willing to talk to you, people willing to respond. People have had 9-figure exits, people that run multi-billion-dollar businesses. They want to talk to you, especially if you have a good idea and a good reason to be asking for them to talk to you. That has been shocking to me. I mean, absolutely shocking. It's one thing to learn of a local Kansas City, a 8-figure exit guy or something. That's big enough, right, for a little guy like myself coming from nothing. But man, it's shocking. So if you have a good why as to why you're asking to talk to them, I've adopted John Maxwell's learning lunch idea. If you're not familiar, are you familiar with that? So he's a leadership guru, 100 leadership books plus he's written. And his whole concept for 50 years has been invite people who've done more than I've done to lunch and call it a learning lunch and say, I'm going to buy you lunch in exchange for blasting you with questions for an hour and a half and learning. I don't really eat. I order food, but I don't usually eat it. I just learn and let them take a bite and then answer a question. So, but that's been really cool. I've done like 7 or 8 of those in the last year and a half. And so one a month is the goal, almost there. But just when you approach real leaders like that, real people who have done real things that you aspire to be, that once you're there, you kind of want to turn around and help the next one in line, right? That's the human nature of this whole thing. And so you're just playing to their human nature. And, the misconception, probably the number one misconception I had was, well, they're running a giant company. They have no time. But the truth is, if they're running a giant company well, they have more time, right? That they do have time because yes, because they're leading, via delegation versus leading via, control and all the things and thinking they're the only one who can do it right and all that. They've done surpassed that mindset, right? And I did have an issue delegating. Not on I do it better. How am I going to get somebody to do it better? More just I have to get good at it before I can go teach it. And that was wrong, right? It's like that is the worst way to think. Hire someone that does it 10 times better than you or that's done it 10 times longer than you. Don't try to get good at it because that's another one of those human things, right? It's like I don't want to hire someone for a task that I can't even do well. How in the world do I do that? Like, how did I miss? Hire someone who knows how, bro. Like, how did I miss it? But, those are the lessons. They're huge lessons that I've learned. But, yeah, LinkedIn is by far the best place to get, the initial conversation, to warm up situations. And then it's, be bold. Be bold and don't be afraid to say something. Don't ask for something without offering something back. But don't be afraid to say what you need to say. And, I'm saying let's do a learning lunch to someone who's in Atlanta. And I'm in Kansas City. And I'm not mentioning anything about a problem but getting to Atlanta for a lunch. Right? I'm just leaving that out. I kind of hope they ask sometimes, like, why are you going to do that? Don't worry about it. What day can we do this? It doesn't matter. It's worth the $1,000 ticket to come sit with you for an hour and a half, So just kind of unlimiting your mind, right? Just taking limitations, taking limited beliefs away, and really believing that if you're really going to do something good with this information, then it's worth their time to sit with you most of the time, right? And it's just like sales, though. There's definitely a 5% success rate, but that doesn't matter, right? The fact is, you get this time with these people that otherwise you wouldn't have.
Right.
Super
You'll
important.
never know if you don't ask. Cause I have people reach out to me sometimes too, just as being as like a woman in logistics or whatever, and wanting to know things and like, hey, how did you grow your network? And I don't really know how that happened, but it did happen. And it's a lot of hard work, but it's like hard to put down on paper, but more than willing to share all the things. So I think as long as you come at it in like everybody gets those annoying sales LinkedIn messages, as long as you're coming at it in like hey, I want to pick your brain on something, like want to learn from you and things like that, people are a lot more open to do it.
Yes. And we're raising capital for the first time in my entire life. I'm still, blindly ignorant to this. I have the right help now, but it's still something I'm just uncomfortable with based on ignorance, not that I don't think we're going to get them a great return, but just ignorance, right? And so even reaching out to a logistics leader who's now an investor. Well, I'm reaching out on a logistics leader front, not an investor front, but I've got other places they might go look and see we're raising money. So you just have to be clear. Like, look, I'm just looking to learn from your success, not looking for a check from you. Because I've crossed those on accident, not even realizing they've turned to an angel because of their exit, right? But just wild transparency, and man, I felt it to the core when you just said you didn't know what you were doing either. None of us know what we're doing. Like, none of us actually know what we're doing. Everyone is winging it, from the freaking Pope to the baby that got born this morning. We're all winging it. And I think that's the ultimate secret that they should teach in elementary school is no one knows how, right? We definitely get to a place where we get a vertical where we're really freaking good at it. But but people make that mistake of, oh, they got that figured out means they got life figured out. No, like almost never is that the case, right? And it's just be willing to walk into everything every day ready to learn, not ready to tell people what you know or be the best, brightest in the room or any of those things. Just go in ready to learn and be curious,
Yeah.
That's another
I totally agree with that.
Yes, like ask questions, be annoying with questions. That's actually a pretty good attribute.
Because a lot of people, everybody likes to talk about themselves. You know what I mean? And so being like that humble person where you're like, hey, I'm just wanting to know things is huge. Even on like a sales front as well, like getting to know your prospect or your client or whatever that speaks volumes, because then you really understand their needs and you know that you actually care, and it's not just like a one and done sale. And I think that translates with so many different angles in life, not just, wanting to learn on growing business. So that's cool that you took that step. And like you said, I definitely think it hits the low part and then comes back up. So whenever you did hit the low, part of it, your career and everything, what made you keep going? Like, what made you be like, okay, instead of working for the man and doing this and that, what made you be like, okay, let me do this again?
Right, because everything said, just go get a job, bro. Like you go get a job. But there's multiple factors here, so I'll try to make it fast. But the first factor was why I went bankrupt, why I was down. It was a choice. It wasn't a forced situation where we ran out of every dollar and couldn't do anything else. It was a choice because I tried to exit trucking in 2017 and keep with yard management. Can you see a theme? So, but I had leased equipment and leased trailers, and because I was looking for late model for driver retention, and I was looking for and I was thinking another ignorant thing: build 20 trucks on the spot market, which in 14, 15, 13, the spot market was okay. It was doable. Build and then go sell capacity, right? Dumb idea. But I did not know that the spot market could act like the stock market and just crash overnight. And we had like a 20 to 30% drop, arguably in that 15, 16, 17 range, somewhere in there. I think it was late 15, early 16, if I recall. But for some, it was different for everyone. It wasn't like March 22. It was kind of different for everyone back in those days. So it was a different kind of crash. But, I just wasn't aware of that. And so we tried to operate and we were doing over the road, doing the appointment chasing thing with brokered freight, right? Just terrible setup. So it bit me really hard. So I actually went to the leasing companies and said, hey, I'm hurting. Is there anything we can do? This blew me away. And I'm only going to say this because I want other people to know that to do it this way. I was the only person in their history of being a leasing company. And it was a smaller local one here. But still, in Kansas City, it wasn't a Penske or Ryder, but still, that actually, I came in, owned that I was failing, owned that it wasn't working, asked for some kind of help, asked how we could work together and not just destroy the relationship. They said no one does that. And that blows me away. Because the more transparent we can be, the more grace we get in all reality. Now, sometimes that's not true, depending on what we're being transparent about, clearly. But something like this, they took half the trucks back. Right. So I bought me another 6 months, try to figure it out, try to sell my way out of it, finally get a sales team instead of doing brokerage. Right. Like, hello. So, a lot of things came into this, not having the sales team, relying on brokers, not having way too high a CapEx for a spot market setup and not a contracted ARR type of thing. And then, deciding to close the trucking side, I was going to keep the yard management side open. But when I turned all those trucks in, here comes the lawsuits for the leases, which I'm fine with because that's what I signed up for. So that with the multi-million-dollar lawsuit is what caused the bankruptcy we didn't just run out of cash. Like we paid all of our vendors until the last day we operated. We did all that. We didn't hit anybody but the leasing companies, and they got their equipment back. So it was a best case scenario considering what it was, but it still wasn't right. So then, why I decided to come back is I was able to keep the yard management stuff via a partnership, right? And so they helped me get through the bad part of my side of financial side and move that forward. One thing that delayed it longer than it should have is I was ignorant to private money. I didn't understand that. I was always an 800 credit score traditional banking guy. And so I never had a problem going to a bank, so I didn't need private money. So I never had a reason to learn it, right? Like never. I've had a huge 7-figure SBA loan with that trucking company. I was able to go get whatever I needed my whole life, right? Because I was taught that as an early age is the importance of revolving credit. But so it's like a multi-factor situation. But I think that the knowing that I knew what I wanted to do was bring more yard management to the industry, bring more managed yards, more drop trailers. It's always been the drive since like 6 days into my first days of trucking, right? I did a few live loads with Prime Incorporated as a reefer. Then I did a drop and hook, and I'm like, what do you mean? What do you? They do that? Like, why is this not everywhere? So for a long time, I felt that way. Just had a lot of things in my way, right? A lot of what felt like roadblocks, but were just challenges to learn and grow from, and understand how all this works at a big level instead of just my little guy one business self, right? So, our one man business. So, knowing that I had something to keep me going, and then also knowing that I'm gonna get this vision completed. I just knew it, and so that's something I don't think most people have. Is just and I'm not overly confident person. I just know that there's really nothing else I want to do with my life than to unlock this efficiency for the industry and mainly for truck drivers and their freaking marriages, for God's sake, right? So they can predict their life and do more and make more, right? So it's just been a vision I've had that hasn't gone away. I did think some of the tech platforms that are in our industry heavy right now, Convoy is a really good example. It's not around anymore, so it's good compare. But they were kind of thinking the same general principles. Let's democratize out this ability to grab trucks and do the short things and run around and handle stuff. So I thought some of those would come and backfill this particular niche. And so when they didn't, and that study from ATRI came out, of 30% of drive time every day not used on truckload trucks, that kind of got me real fired up. But, again, I kind of squirreled off of your question. The get through the bankruptcy is you just have to believe. And one thing you have to know for sure is it is 1/100% as bad as it feels. Anything ever, right? There's a fine line between having empathy and grieving and doing things like that, and just realizing it's over, move on, go forward, don't look back. Only look back actually go forward with your book of lessons from back there. Don't even turn around. Like, put them in a book, take them with you. Don't turn around and think about it. Most people just sit in emotion for hours or days or months or years. The people that lost a parent 5 years ago and still are distraught about it, that's normal for everyone. Amen. This could be a mindset play too, right? For real though, because that when we lose a loved one, it's the worst thing in the world, but it's a worst thing selfishly. It's a selfish worst thing, right? It's not the whole world just collapsed. And yeah, you might have lost your mentor, you might have lost your best friend, you might have lost your whatever. But just using a worst case scenario for this mindset thing of getting me out of bankruptcy is bankruptcy is a pretty worst case scenario. It feels like that. The word I thought was a coward's way out of a financial problem where they bought too many Ferraris too soon is how I kind of saw, just overspending but that was not our game. We were trying very hard to do the right thing, and I was making $70,000 a year as the owner of $5 million trucking company. So it's like that's all I could do, and I was okay with that. But it still made me just feel like, dude, they're going to judge me. They're going to blah, 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 And so I had to shed, giving it a rat's rear end, what anybody else thought, because I know I'm doing the best I can, and I'm doing it for the right reasons. I'm just maybe not doing it right, and just had to just kind of put your head down. And, you'd be shocked how many people, when you come out of it, look at you as stronger, just like you almost kind of did, right? It's like going through the depth, a dark, dark depth of literally being trapped by, by your circumstances because of the title that's on you or because of the check mark you have to put on every application, have you been bankrupt, changes everything, right? But it doesn't have to. Like, there's always a way.
Even like whenever people get laid off, that can be a same type of mindset as well, or they get fired from a job, they think the same thing. And it's like, no, I think the biggest thing is believing in yourself or having that vision to where like, hey, this is where I want to go. And this is how I'm going to get there, and laying out a plan kind of for yourself. Yeah, I think that's huge. That's awesome that you got to, I mean, as bad as it is that you got to experience it, it's cool that you did and then can talk about it in that way. Cause it's, it helps others for sure.
Yeah, I hope it helps others be willing to take the risk, not scared of the worst case scenario, because this worst case scenario isn't that bad.
Right.
It is a time stealer because it takes time to go through that and let it be far enough away to let people not be scared that you're, financially irresponsible. But it's those years go by fast, especially when you put your head down and try to focus. I did go through, I had 2 years I had to kind of sit and not move. And that was tough. That was a tough 2 years. There was a lot of, decisions to try to run away from it. Whether it's booze or whatever, just going out all the time to keep my mind distracted. And those were things I regret because I could have been building the core of this whole thing in those 2 years, So you have to just remember, like, ditch the poor me. Like,
yeah,
it serves you 0%. The poor me, and worrying about what other people are thinking and worry about how people respond and worried about when you say thank you, somebody says you're welcome. Like, worrying about any of that madness is just a waste of energy. And it takes more energy for that than it does the good stuff scientifically. So it's like all that stuff I learned in those 2 years I was studying while I was, running. I was also sitting around, with passive income from this yard management stuff we kept. I was able to kind of just learn. And that's where the real journey started, right? Like they say, all the greatness comes from the depths of the dark depths. And it's so freaking true.
Yeah.
It's so true because it pushes you.
Yeah. And it's cool that you had that vision of the yard management. So break that down for me too. Cause I honestly, the only thing, so for me, I was a broker for 8 years. And I honestly never had to deal with drop trailers until Amazon became such a big thing. And we ended up having our carrier side be part of Amazon and the drop trailers there, and like the headache of Amazon and going back and forth. That was like the first experience. And I think that's kind of whenever it first blew up was Amazon was like the kind of forefront, or at least that as a big scale anyways. In
for
the
your
industry.
Company. Yes. Yeah. For your company. But the megas have been doing it forever. The P&Gs, the Unilevers, the Tysons, the megas, they've been dropping hooking for decades. They built a spotter truck, first one in like the 50s, and then the JB Hunt and Schneider jumped on early. So we've been doing it for a long time because, again, it's all about not having that asset that needs to roll down the highway to make money be constrained by appointment times. When, for my favorite example is a driver arrives in town today for tomorrow morning's delivery. That's already a huge waste. And statistically, they arrive with multiple hours left on their clock to keep producing. But they're just stuck, right? Because there's one trailer, one load of freight, can't load it till it's empty. And so obviously the efficiency gain of doing a drop and hook program is exponential. And it's very clear, and there's tons and tons and tons of data on it. There are some nuancy things with drop and hook, right? But now with trailer tracking, with the ability to have, Samsara or whoever devices on every trailer to know exactly where they are all the time. Now we can see if they're empty or not. Like, there's a lot of cool technology to make this way better. And then what I think that the yard management is lacking is them educating the shipper and helping them fine tune their process, right, to avoid some of these things. Amazon, totally different. It's mainly their trailers. It was mainly power only. There might have been some bigger carriers mixed in there at first, like the Schneiders and Swifts, I'm sure. I don't know. But, that's, and plus they're building a logistics network that's now the biggest one in the world, arguably, from scratch. So in the time where you were doing that, everything from scratch is a mess, right? But, yes, but when it's not from scratch, it's not a mess. We basically schedule things to get loaded 10, 12, 15 hours before we know the truck can be there, and that solves the mess. Right, they get to load it at their leisure, whatever schedule they like, and then we get to come in and just unhook a trailer, hook a trailer, and leave in 30 minutes versus an industry average of 2.5 hours to wait to get a trailer loaded. And again, I think the stat that gets just, I don't know why it's not talked about. And maybe it is. I just haven't found it. But I've been looking, obviously, because I'm in this game. But detention is the buzzword, right? And detention is the unexpected wait after the expected wait. But why don't we talk about the expected wait? The time from truck being dispatched, sitting at the truck stop empty, waiting on load, gets dispatched, drives empty to shipper, sits at shipper till appointment, then sits for 2.5 hours for transfer of goods, then takes off. They're already 7 hours into their 14-hour day. Like, it's just not good, right? And then they show up with time on the other end, and then it's just a continual a whole bunch of times. It's usually multiple hours for the appointment on both shipper and receiver, and then it's however many hours it takes them to deadhead to get there, and then it's the time in the middle, because you probably know this being a broker. Like, we're scheduling these things as if every truck's gonna have a flat tire. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but we're scheduling, a 700-mile run. We're putting it for 2 days. A truck could technically do that in one shift. So let's call it 1 1/10, 1.2 shifts, and we're giving them 2 freaking days. So what we don't realize is drivers are taking advantage of that in their own way, saying, well, I'm not going to go there and sit for 0.8 days waiting on my appointment. I'm going to stop on the way and see mom and them and see whatever, stop at the casino, do whatever their thing is. And so it's hard to measure that part of it because the truck isn't going and sitting to get measured by GPS data, from Atri, right? Whereas the detention part is being measured that way. But you just think about how much time they have. Why are we, the exception happens 0.5% of the time, maybe? I don't know what the stat is. I don't think there is one. I can't find one. But it's very, very rare that you have something that's going to delay the truck from a reasonable transit time. Reasonable being 50, 60 mile an hour average, 50 to be safe. So they're just all these constraints. And then first come, first serve, great. Then you don't have the appointment. That's better. Unless 5 trucks show up at the same time.
I was going to say, unless if it's lunch, right after lunchtime, or unless it's 8 a.m. Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. Some facilities, when it's like that, but a lot of times it's just luck of the draw of when everybody else is doing their own thing and when they got released from their receiver to get the load to come here, so that doesn't solve the problem either. So basically we've seen that the contracted yard management situation, which is the current way of doing it, the normal way, if you want to call it that, traditional, is the companies that can afford the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year per truck to be on their property to move trailers around, do it. The ones that, don't, they do it in-house, maybe, some of them. But there's just a ton of nuanced issues with that in general, right? Most of the time, let's say a Cargill does one truck 24/7, right? Well, is that truck really running 24/7? Not even close. It's just, but they want it there when they need it there, right? And so there's a lot of downtime in the traditional way of doing it as well. So I've been trying to figure out the way to spread it to everyone, and that's where this whole idea came from: is take the ones that are sitting half the day and find some neighbors that could use some work, take it off their bill, put it on their bill, and then everybody's paying less than it costs them to do it, right? At that point, because it's slice of pizza versus whole pie game. I can get 2 slices of pizza way cheaper than I can a whole pie, but if I buy 8 slices of pizza to make a whole pie, I'm gonna pay way more than I paid for the whole pie. So that's the concept: is the technology gets the income, gets more than they would normally get for the asset to do the job. They take a cut and still are able to pay that asset in a marketplace more to do the job than they normally would get. So it wins, and then everybody paying in is paying less than they would pay themselves. Everybody wins.
So it's almost like being part of a network that handles like the jockeys, right? Isn't it called a jockey where they move the trailers around?
Yeah, yard jockey, spotter, hostler, shunter. There's all kind of terms for it. Yes. Terminal tractor, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's kind of democratizing that, and that our initial rollout is going to be mainly just that. We're going to find businesses that are neighbors with each other, and we're doing it now. We have two shared sites in Kansas City, and we're working on a third one as we speak. So the technology has to come in to make it scalable, right? To make it very hard-edged, guardrailed, and algorithmed, if you will, if that's a word. Algorithmic situation where we decide when the orders come in, how to put them in order for that shared truck, and that all has to be done up front and everything. But
I imagine for the actual warehouse workers, it's a lot less stressful because you're not like hurrying and getting screamed at by drivers saying you're taking longer than 2 hours and whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think just work work-life balance. That seems to be the whole thing nowadays.
Yeah, and the opposite side of that is they're not waiting on that truck to show up if they're late for some reason, right? Maybe they did have that flat tire, but most of the time it's the shipper took too long for their hours of service to allow them to make the trip in their same day's hours of service. So now they've got another half a day on it. Now they're late for the appointment, and we have a whole nother
And
domino,
explaining
right?
that, yeah, and explaining that to the receiver is a whole nother thing as a broker. Oh my God. Yeah.
No, because it's not their problem. It's become their problem, but it's not like they don't like that problem because that shouldn't have, but it's just the way it goes, especially with the e-logs. The e-logs really, put us in a box, right? Before we were kind of moving paper around a little bit and kind of, if we went to a shipper at 7 a.m. and we got out there at noon, we would just change the log and say we got to a shipper at 10 a.m. We wouldn't really change it to drive more miles than we're legally allowed. We would change it to make our start time for our 14-hour window be later, right? That was it. That way we had the hours on the back end to get to the receiver so we wouldn't go through the whole rigmarole of being late, being a work in. So the whole day's like one shipment's supposed to be 1 day's revenue on a 500-mile run, let's say, becomes a day and a half, maybe 2 days of revenue, but it's the same amount of money. So, you can
definitely
see why we suffer, right?
Yeah. No, I did postal first. When I got into a brokerage, I worked postal, and then after that I did copper and electrical wire. So the postal, though, they typically load within 15 minutes. Like, you pull up, they throw some bins on there, they secure them, and you're out the door. Like, they're super fast. So like my turn and burn on those carriers, like I had carriers that just love those lanes, and that's all they did. And they were like, they went cheaper because they were running faster and delivery was super fast. Like, it made a huge difference with even the relationship I had with them. I was not dealing with drivers freaking out on me, which for me, like, I'm not very good at confrontation. So whenever a driver would freak out, I'm like, somebody else talk to this guy and make him happy, because I didn't know what to do. But just even dealing with that type of stuff, it makes a difference with just it really. So like, we're talking about dock workers, their work-life balance, brokers dealing with, carriers and appointment times and all the mess that they deal with, and then carriers being able to make more. I mean, it's kind of like a win-win situation on this.
Literally for everyone. As soon as we get this thing built right, we can plop it everywhere. We license it to carriers that are in different markets and let them do it. Because the whole goal is get the solution to the industry, not to keep it all ourselves or do anything like that. I just want to find a solution for the industry and get it out there. So yes, it is a win-win for everyone.
And I guess you guys integrate with WMSs and also maybe TMSs, or do you tell if it's like a dedicated carrier, does it also shoot the information to the carrier?
Yes, we will have a platform you can go to, especially if you're a one-off carrier wanting to be a provider on the network. We'll have a way to do that, of course. But that part of the UI is like, very, very little of this. Most of this is the algorithm and the organizing of the sharing, and most of this is getting connected. Yes, because we're not going to ask somebody to go somewhere else. We are all very much app saturated or platform saturated. We just want to be the back end that organizes and puts this together. So in theory, like, you're a broker, you have a truck. Well, for a broker, the better example is doing the same thing we're doing with the spotter in a industrial park. We want to do with a local truck in a local market, because the big carriers have, their local truck that just goes and picks up and delivers freight to create the drop and hook at their terminal, right? So we democratize that too. Hey, do you just need to, so in your situation, you got a carrier that's locked up in detention at the load before you, has nothing to do with you, can't make your pickup. Your choices are, with 1 hour to spare, knock them off the load and go look like crazy and try to get someone there, which is very highly unlikely. Or you call truck of ours and we run and grab their trailer and the trailer that they might have in the market, right? So the trailer availability is a challenge, but it's not when people know this is going on, they will get trailers. Like, if they get to drop and hook, they're going to get trailers. So I'm not worried about that long term, but obviously the rollout is tough. That's why this is going to be our second phase. However, just imagine if you could say in your system, emergency, right? An easy button, and it just sends us a local pickup, sends us the address of where their trailer is. We go make the pickup, put it back where it was. That way, when they get free of detention, they just drop and hook, and then they're on the road with yours.
Yeah, imagine Friday at 4:59, whenever you have that load that needs to be picked up. Yeah. And then really they can pick up grab the trailer on Saturday, but it has to get picked up that day before they leave at whatever time. Yeah. I can't even. And me being fraud girl, that's whenever the majority of stuff comes in. So having a solution that's not panic and run.
Yes,
it's
that's
like
trusted. Right. Like you trust that this is we're now a motor carrier that doesn't compete with you. We support you. That's the grand vision is say, yeah, we're a motor carrier. Yeah, we could go compete with you, but we'd rather support you on your first and last mile and get your shippers to do drops and facilitate that for them. That's the big why, if you will. It's just to give us support we've never had, because before you literally were just in a corner making everybody mad with not a whole lot of good solutions. To your point, you're freaking out. You're onboarding someone last minute, like
Yeah.
because
They
you
look
need
like
it. You
crap
don't
and
want
you're
to
rolling the
fail.
dice. Yeah.
Yes, and it'd be cool if all of us truckers got together and kind of worked together in this space. But this will allow that, right? This will give us a place to go to be able to do that, because the carrier can be on the network too. They can say, while I'm waiting on my load, let me go pick up someone else's load, make some money, right? As part of this marketplace network. Again, that's probably a year and a half down the road. We will absolutely serve all of this stuff in Kansas City right now manually. We've been doing it for 5-7 years on the pick up and deliver freight thing here and there. And then we've been doing the shared yard management for like 8 years and kind of learning how that works and seeing it fail in certain places and why and stuff. So we've kind of ideated through all the problems that we know of yet so far and ready to build the thing. So yes.
What city are you guys aiming towards next?
Kansas City's where we are now, and I think the opportunities that we get here will help us decide what market to go to next, based on relationships here that could just help us get some anchors in other areas. It looks like Oklahoma City could be the next one based on a relationship we have that's offering us a chance to bid something on this concept, or something. Honestly, like the world is so small anymore. The world's so small. We can get wherever, anywhere, real fast. So
Somebody knows somebody that knows something and can help with whatever. Yeah. It's the going back to networking front, like you said before, that blows my mind as far as even just me, myself and my network of people have introduced me, shook hands. Hey, you need to meet so-and-so. And hey, even if you guys just become friends, and you just never know, it makes such a difference. Yeah.
But no, it's so freaking true. Like if you know very little people, then talk to every single person, right? And then you learn where your conversations are valuable for you and where they're not, and where you don't want to waste time and where you do, and give to get. That's a huge one. Give to get. Something that people don't realize.
Totally. I'm big on that. I've almost became like a recruiter at this point because I've referred people to so many jobs, but it's honestly circled back with me so many times. Like I've been able to place people at great companies, and then those great companies know I'm trustworthy to do business with, or refer me to this person or whatever. Like everything's a ripple effect. I'm big on karma. So it's like, if I help this person out, then it'll circle back in some way and stuff like that. Of course,
energy is so real, and the type of energy matters, right? And it does move, and it does come back, and you do it not for it to come back, because then you're constantly looking over your shoulder, waiting on your good karma to show up. Don't do that, but definitely watch when it does, because it will. 100% of the time,
and it motivates you to keep doing it more and more. It's fun. It's really fun. Yeah.
And I believe we're biologically designed to give, right? The feeling we get when we give is tingly and great, right? It's good, and that's on purpose, right? That's how we're designed. It's not by chance. So
that's why, like, whenever, like, if you ever get awarded something or whatever, you almost are like nervous. And I'm not a nervous person, or I'm not shy at all, but it almost makes you shy because you're so used. That's why, like, I think, like you said, we're made to give. Receiving, especially something like that, you're like, oh, all eyes are on me, freaking out or whatever. But yeah,
correct.
other than those narcissists or whatever. But yeah,
you do it to be recognized, maybe not publicly or anything, but you do it for someone to say good job. But once you stop doing that and stop looking for the other than like feedback you want to improve or change your situation, not worrying about what you're going to get out of stuff, you get way more than you would otherwise. Way more. And especially in the game you're talking about with the networking and giving up front and helping where you can. Again, you're changing the lives of some people if you're giving them an opportunity they wouldn't have had otherwise, right? It's just huge, and you'll never know the effect of all of it, but just give, and fill up your moat.
Back. Yeah,
yes.
For sure.
Yes.
So with you being in Kansas City, you're going to Broker Carrier Summit, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you better believe it. Yes, and we're going to host a party at our asset side, our facility. We'll do a warehouse party with some pickleball. Yeah, everybody better be coming. I'm going to try to do it the night before. I don't want to conflict with anything that that Dan's doing. So I'll work with him closely. We did this at his last Kansas City roadshow stop. We had a little 70-person party for that, and that was really cool. Had some games and just had a lot of networking. We have a big warehouse space that's heated, so we can house as many as we need to. And yeah, so hopefully everybody that's coming, we'll look for that. We'll be blasting out stuff on that here shortly as soon as I can get line with him on some sponsored events and stuff. So
Yeah, let me know so I can share that as well. Yeah, I love my Kansas City peeps. They're like my favorite out there. You guys are rock
I
stars.
was wondering if you really mean that, because Kansas
No,
City's a good spot. We've got some good
flew
humans
out
in the
there
group.
just whenever you guys did that happy hour, and it was last year sometime. I mean, I flew out on my own dime to go because I have like a lot of customers there and a lot of network out there. Yeah, I love.
Okay,
Kansas
so
City.
you were
It's
able
so
to
fun.
do a twofer.
Yeah,
Do the fun. Yeah, we do have a really good group and a solid group that comes to all the things, right? And we usually do one once every couple of months, if not more. So yeah, we're blessed. I'm sure the whole country has their own thing of this, but we are very blessed town for sure.
well, love it. Well, I can't wait to see you at Broker Carrier Summit. Thanks so much for coming on. I've learned so much and keep killing it, dude. I'm so excited to see your next things that you're doing, and you have to come back on when you have phase 2 out. Talk about that because it's like almost like a duh problem. Like, hey, this is how you fix it, duh. But I think it's gotten to be where I think because there's so much competition between each other that you forget, hey, there's a way to collaborate in like that middle party, and you guys providing that is huge. So
Yeah, I think it's nuanced in its rollout and implementation understanding, but it's very, very simple in its overall complexity. It's just you got to do the work, just like anything
Yeah.
else. You got to do a whole bunch of things you don't want to do to get to what you want. So that's all of life, all the time, every single thing you ever want to do. You just got to do a lot of it. So we are head down. We are building relationships and getting feedback and talking to the investors that are excited about it and trying to line up something in that space as well. Again, that part's new to me. I'm very transparent about that. But I know we can get a mega return. We already have 2 services where we can show good EBITDA for both the provider and the software, more than I would have thought, actually. So I feel we can make the provider more money than they would have on their own based on pooling the money, right? It's just the concept of pooling the money,
so cool.
It helps a lot.
Well, thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Tell me everything. Tell me everything.